welcome to the Bella Grace podcast, where we are empowering you to embrace the beautiful grace found in recovering your authentic self. This season, we are doing this by sharing stories of people who have found sobriety and are building a life that they love in sobriety and who are having fun being sober. So today, we have my friend Joe.
Hi.
Hello. And Joe is going to talk to us today about what it's like to grow up Latino and what it's like to be sober Latino, because the Latino culture is a monster all of its own.
Yes.
I grew up in the Latino culture and family, and I didn't realize until the other day that a lot of people aren't familiar with it. I'm sure you've seen it, Blood In, Blood Out. The movie. It's very old. Mm-hmm. But we saw something on TV and it reminded me, it was like the LA River, which is like the ditch system that runs through LA. And I was like, one of my favorite movies is set, like there's a scene in that LA River. Mm-hmm. And my husband was like, what movie? And I said, Blood In, Blood Out. I was like, we have to watch it. How have you never seen it? And for me, it was such a staple. Like we watched it on repeat. I'm pretty sure we broke the VHS tape of it.
That's funny.
Because we watched it so much. And he was watching it and kind of like laughing. He's like, is it supposed to be funny? Because it's set in the 70s. And so it's very much that like cholo culture and like bandanas and the gangs and the art and, like all of that, like the Aztec beliefs and just that whole culture. And so in the way they were talking, he was like, is it supposed to be a joke? And I'm like, no.
My culture isn't a joke.
I was like, no, how do you but it didn't dawn on me until that moment that like people aren't familiar with Latino culture and like the way we talk and the way we dress and where it came from and how much the Aztec culture plays into it. And so I thought it was important and really cool to have you on and talk about that and give some insight, because it is difficult to be Latin and sober.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's not normal.
It's not.
So tell us your story. Tell us about Joe. How did you grow up? What was it like? Just like your family dynamics and that sort of thing.
So one, I really appreciate this question.
Yes.
Because in order to understand where I'm coming from and why I am the way I am, it's a lot of like rooted from my upbringing and stuff like that. And if I'm being fully honest, like I don't have too many fond memories of my childhood, and I don't know. And I've talked about it with my sister, and she was like, no, we did go out and do good stuff. And I'm like, I don't remember anything. But a lot of that is like overshadowed by trauma I witnessed as growing up. So a little backstory. I grew up here in Dallas, in Garland. My parents got divorced when I was like 2 years old. So then my mom had custody of, it's just me and my sister. She's 2 years older than me. My mom had custody of us up until I was like 8 or 9. And then my dad got custody of us. So growing up, my dad was always working, and man, kudos to him. The hardest working man I've ever met. And even to this day, he's like in his 60s and he still works like every single day. He works Monday through Friday at a warehouse, and then he's at the flea market all day on the weekends. He's just super Latin culture, right?
Right, yeah.
Always working.
Always
like me.
working.
Yeah.
They work till they can't.
Honestly.
Till the wheels fall off.
Honestly, yeah. So like my dad was always working when we were growing up, and so like my sister kind of raised me kind of like as a motherly figure, and that was basically like up until like when we were like teenagers, and then my sister, she had kids and started to live her life, and then me, once I turned 18, like my dad had moved out, and then I kind of started my life and whatnot. But one of the biggest things throughout when I was growing up is my dad was an alcoholic. And this is not to throw shade at my dad or anything like that. No. It's just the reality of what it was.
And it's pretty common in our culture. That's pretty normal.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate though that's normal. Like, I can think of probably another uncle. He's probably would be considered an alcoholic and whatnot. And it kind of sucks because I'm not gonna say like it's all my dad's fault or anything like that, but it did contribute to some of the stuff I saw, some of the bad situations I was placed in. I think I was like around 13 or 14, and like there was a shooting nearby. And then a lot of like my teenage years is when I endured a lot of trauma as far as like seeing what alcohol can do to someone and seeing how I was in like wrong place, wrong time type of thing.
Yeah.
And then that's a little bit of, that's like my childhood. And a lot of it is like I said, like I just remember the traumas and stuff like that. And like being in close proximity with like shootings or like my dad having angry fits when he was drunk or like not knowing where my dad was at. Like it was hard. It was hard. Or, one time I did see my dad get arrested. And, yeah, it's hard. But that was like my teenage years, which were really difficult. And then, I don't know.
I hear a lot of the same things that happened in my life in your story.
Really?
Yeah, like it was like everybody in the family drank. I don't know how many times there were shootings, people got in a fight, someone got stabbed. Like it was just constant. There was sexual, physical abuse among some of my cousins. Like it's just those underlying like deep, dark secrets. And a little peek behind the curtain. We started filming a second ago and my dog went crazy and started barking. So we had to start over. So this is take 2. But before we cut, you were talking about how like stuff gets swept under the rug and like how the trauma just gets like, you don't talk about it. And it's like that don't ask, don't tell kind of mentality. And that like, I know that played a huge part in some of the bad drinking habits and bad choices that I ended up making. It made me more susceptible to becoming an addict. Because I saw everybody doing it. It was normal.
Yeah.
And like you said, like your uncle might be considered an alcoholic. Like we didn't even know what the definition of an alcoholic was. I don't know if that was, like for you guys, like.
Well, that's such a good question. Like, well, what's considered an alcoholic? Well, like if you like, so when I started drinking when I was like 20 up until I was like 25. So I didn't drink in high school or anything like that. It was just my early 20s. And so it's like, well, was I an alcoholic? Well, I would say I was a functioning alcoholic where on the weekends I would get messed up. And like once I had like 1 or 2, like it'd be hard for me to stop. And once in a blue moon, I would be able to control myself.
Yeah.
But I remember like I would still go to work the next days. I was working at Kroger at the time. I would go into work, like, the next day, I was either hungover or still drunk. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember many of those days, too.
And it's, like, in growing up in, like, a Latino household, it's, like, because I grew up with my uncle, too. Yeah. And I remember, like, they got off work, all right, they drink a tall boy. They were going to go to bed, drink a tall boy. Well, then it's, like, well, but, like, it's normal to us because it's, like, oh, well, they're just tired. Drink a tall boy. And,
it's the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Someone dies, beer.
Yeah.
Someone gets married, beer. Like, we're all here at Grandma's house. Cool. Who's brought the beer?
The majority of my family, though, they're not like that, like, super, like, Latino party influence with beer. But it's, I think it's like going back to the original question. Well, I think like, all right, my uncle would have a beer every day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, but like us growing up, we don't see that as he's an alcoholic or an addiction or anything like that.
Because he went to work.
Yeah, he went to work. Oh,
yeah.
He's tired.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was normal. It was, and I think that's something that's still, it's still an issue now, is like we think alcohol is the only way to decompress. Mm-hmm. It's the only way to relax after a long day. Like, and so then you have all these people who are coming home from work, having a tall boy, having another one, which was my problem, because I was like you. I couldn't just stop after one. There was no way. One was never enough. Mm-hmm. And then they wake up and they're hungover, and then they go to work and they feel like crap, and the cycle perpetuates itself. Mm-hmm. So you didn't drink in high school?
No.
Wow.
I was a good kid in high school.
I don't know very many high school kids who don't drink. So was it? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. No, honestly, yeah. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I can probably count the number of high school kids that I know right now, because my daughter's in high school, who don't drink. Like, wow. Yeah, on one hand, probably. Yeah.
And it's crazy too, because they're just kids. Like, they shouldn't be experimenting with that. There's a reason why it's legal age 21.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It alters your brain chemistry. Mm-hmm. It alters like all kinds of things. Yeah. Like, and their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, so they can't make good decisions to begin with. Yeah. And then you add booze in there, and it's like, and that, like, when you were talking about your childhood and how you were in bad situations, like, alcohol, it's not that your parents were crap parents or that your dad was a crap dad. It's like, alcohol lowers inhibitions, and we don't think through our decisions when we're drunk. Mm-hmm. And so when you're drunk, it might not seem like a big deal to go to the hood to a barbecue with your kids at 2 a.m.
Honestly.
You know, and there's a shooting next door. Like, you don't think those things through, and and then the kids are the ones stuck in a bad situation.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you did start drinking at 20?
Yeah, it was like 20, 21-ish.
Okay. Why did you start drinking at that point?
That's a good question. I think it was just to fit in, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like when I was in high school, I didn't drink at all. And like I had a good core of friends, and I'm still friends with them to this day. But we're just like, we're doing what teenagers should be doing, like not drinking and partying and all that stuff and doing drugs. Like, no, we're just good kids.
Yeah.
But I think when I started drinking, it was a little bit of a like, oh, like, you know, this is what people do. And I still remember like drinking a Dos Equis and like, shit, I don't even like how it tastes. Well, I'm gonna have another one so I can get used to the taste of it. And it's so stupid. Like,
I did the same thing with cigarettes.
Oh, like, I don't even like it.
Yeah, but I hated it. Yeah. But I needed to fit in because I didn't have any friends at that point. I was in high school. I didn't have any friends at that point. And the only people that would hang out with me were the girls that went out to... We had this building outside of our high school called the Candy Store. And it was just like this lady that owned this little shop. And she sold like burgers and... you know, candy and Cokes and whatever, and we were allowed to walk over there to get food instead of eating in the cafeteria. Well, these girls would go around the back of the candy store and smoke during lunch, and they were the only people that would hang out with me. So I started smoking, and I forced myself to smoke. Like, I would literally steal cigarettes. My uncle is still alive. He's going to kill us. My cousin would steal cigarettes from his dad.
Are you throwing people under the bus? All these uncles.
I know, my cousin listens. He's going to kill me. He'd steal cigarettes from his dad, and then we would go cruise around in his truck and smoke until we got used to it, and it didn't make us sick anymore.
Now I'm cool.
Yeah, now I'm cool. But yeah, so I get it. But, okay, so going back to why you started drinking. Just to, like, fit in?
Yeah,
like,
and I feel like it's, like, that awkward period of, like, when you're in your early 20s, it's like you don't really know who your friends are. Like, some of your friends still go off to college or, it's like we're all growing up, so people are starting to get into relationships, and it's like you're trying to find your footing with some friends and whatnot. And I think that's what it was for me. Like, okay, well, I think I started hanging out with some coworkers. They were older, they drank. Okay, well, yeah, I'll have a beer and stuff like that. And then, like, my other friends who were, like, my friends from high school who we didn't drink, like, well, we all started drinking around that time and stuff like that. And then they got jobs as waiters and in that industry.
Food service industry. I was in it for a long time. And that's all you do.
Work and go out and drink. And
you close down and you find the nearest bar and it becomes your spot, and that's where you go every night.
I was tagging along with them and stuff like that. And that's the main reason why I started drinking, I would say, just to kind of fit in. And
And so when you were drinking, you already kind of talked about it, but it wasn't like were you ever like an everyday, all day drinker?
No, I would every once in a blue moon. Like, I was mostly like a social drinker.
Yeah.
But every once in a blue moon, I'd like, I think it got bad when I was like working at Kroger, and I was like really stressed out in like 2016. And I would have some I remember I had like a mini fridge, and I had it loaded with beers, like different type of beers. Yeah. And then Kroger would have like beers on clearance price, and go hide them behind this display and buy them when I get off work.
This is my stash.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's not for sale, sir.
Yeah, sorry. That's being held for someone else.
But I wouldn't say around that time, that's when I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have a beer because I'm tired from work.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I was drinking all day, every day type of thing. It'd be like, okay, let me have a beer or whatnot. And then I guess with like all day drinking, it's like mostly like, okay, I'm gonna go out with some friends, like, okay, or like we're day drinking and stuff like that. But that's why I say I was a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
I was able to get through, but once like weekends hit, like that's where I'm like.
So you were more like a binge drinker. So like binge drinking is when you have like the weekend hits.
Oh yeah.
And you party all weekend.
Yes.
And then Monday hits and you might have a drink here and there, throughout the week to decompress. But the weekend hits again and it's like you go all in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when I was in college at Texas Tech, that's one of the things that they teach on, is because a lot of college kids, which is the age that you were, that 18 to 25 age range, they tend to be binge drinkers. And it has just as bad of an effect on your liver as if you were a like quote unquote true alcoholic, where you're like drinking every day and sneaking booze at work and like that sort of thing. It has the same sort of effect on your liver and the rest of your body. And so our program used to try to educate college students on the effects of binge drinking. So it's hard because I was a binge drinker too. And for a long period of time, I didn't really even drink. When my daughter was little, I would drink here and there, but hardly ever. So when I stopped drinking, people were like, why'd you stop drinking? Like, you don't have a problem. I'm like, but I do.
I do.
Because once I start, I can't stop. Like, it was, once I had that first drink at the pool, it was blackout, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no stopping that train once it started. Like,
I totally get that.
Yeah.
And it took me a good while to kind of like, I guess give myself grace in a sense, because it's like, you talk about, you get blackout drunk and whatnot, and then your friends are freaking having to take care of you, and I felt bad, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can think of my friends right off the top of my head. I'm like, they're the ones who took care of me and stuff like that, and it's like, it's a little embarrassing, too. Cause it's like they're babysitting you, and I should know better. I'm already old enough.
Yeah. And then you wake up the next morning, and you're like, crap, what did I do?
What did I do?
Yeah.
Who did I message?
And then you start looking at the pictures and the messages, and you're like, oh my gosh, why? And I would always tell myself, okay, I'm going to moderate. Next weekend will be different. I'm not going to drink as much. I'm going to have one glass of wine, and then I'll be done. And no.
Nope. Yeah.
Never. Yeah. And so that's that, like, gray area of alcoholism or, substance alcohol use disorder. It's like, where is that line? But I think it comes down to the fact of like, how do you feel after you drink?
Ooh, that's good.
Do you feel guilty? Do you feel shame? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you let yourself down or you let others down?
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's what, like, towards the end of when I was drinking and whatnot, like, I would say the last, no, maybe even, because I stopped at the start of 2020. So I would say...
Oh, dang, you made it through the pandemic sober?
It was the easiest thing ever.
Really?
Everything was closed.
Well, that's when I started drinking the worst.
I know. Everything was closed.
I know. I was stuck here. I was stuck in my house with nothing to do. Literally, like, we would start drinking at like 3 p.m. Like, I would wake up early to get all my work done so that I was done working because I was working from home. And I was like, cool, I put in my hours, my work is done, time to start drinking.
How long have you been sober for?
I quit drinking August of 2020.
August of 2020?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're about maybe like 6 months behind me.
Okay.
Because I got sober in February of 2020. Okay. Right before pandemic.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So why did you stop drinking?
Ooh, very good question. And so I was actually going to hit on this towards the end of when I was drinking, like the last few years. A lot of it was like me numbing my emotions. Mm-hmm. Me not wanting to feel the way I feel. And a lot of it was like depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And even to this day, I still get these thoughts of like, man, I feel I'm very like, I'm sensitive. I wear my feelings on my sleeves. Mm-hmm. I am just, that's who I am. I can't control it. Yeah. And that can be another discussion for another day about machismo and feelings and stuff like that. But even to this day, I'll be feeling stuff very heavily and like, crap, I wish I could just have a beer to numb it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, towards the end, I would drink just to get rid of these feelings of anxiety, depression, loneliness, whatever it was. So ultimately, what led me to getting sober was my mental health. Mm-hmm. And I know I've already talked to you about this before. I've only a handful of friends know this part of Joe and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But in February of 2020, my mental health got really bad, and I went to a mental health hospital. Mm-hmm. I was there for about 5 days. I saw a lot of crazy stuff. Now when I be thinking about my mental health, I'm like, no, I'm good. I ain't trying to go back. I'm hearing voices, but I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, there's that line in Orange is the New Black that she says, you make it back from the shoe. You don't make it back from psych.
But yeah, ultimately, like, my mental health got really bad that, like, I want to say, like, I had my last beer on February 13th, which was on a Friday. And I think the next day, Saturday, is when I went to go get checked into a mental health hospital. Or no. I'm trying to, like, think of the timeline, but I had my last beer on Thursday. Friday, and this is the part where not too many people know, except for, like, my closest friends. Mm-hmm. Friday, I attempted suicide. Through the grace of God, I lived.
Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I would have never met you. And my life would have been not as happy because you're such a ray of sunshine.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And so, like, I just want to, like, we'll get back on track. But I want to, like, you are one of the happiest people I know. And you are, like, when you walk into a room, you make people smile. And my drinking got really bad in 2020 because my stepson died by suicide March 13th of 2020. And I didn't handle it well at all. And so I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad I got to meet you because you really did help me. And you don't know this, but you did help me through when I met you. That was like, I was still trying to heal from my stepson's death. And like you walking into my house, like I met you, you know, when I met you for the first time, you were just like, hello, here I am. I was like, yes, this is because you remind me so much of my stepson. He was very much that way too.
Really?
Yes. And so it was like a godsend that you came into my life and that you lived through.
My attempt.
Yeah, your
Wow.
attempt.
I appreciate that so much. I'm going to cry.
You didn't know you needed to bring tissues, right?
Girl. Thank you so much for those kind words.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. And it's funny because I was at a party last night, and like one of my friends recorded me, and then I like shared it on my page, and I'm like, I'm such a vibe.
You are. You were such a vibe.
Thank goodness I arrived to this party.
You are, and you always say stuff like that, but it's not like grandiose or like you know, you're not being a show off. It's you are such a vibe, and you're hilarious, and you are really a humble person, but it's like you're just full of love.
I appreciate it so much. I appreciate it so much. Quick little joke when you're like, here I am. I'm like, all right, son, calm it down. You're gonna make me look gay. No disrespect to the gay community. We love them all.
But Joe is single.
Shit, what's up?
And looking to mingle.
After marriage. We're Christians.
We're keeping it PG. We're keeping it rated G.
Follow me on Instagram, Latino_hate_Joe.
Little shout out to his Instagram.
Y'all can DM me. All right, let me stop.
Yeah, so anyway, all right, back to your story.
Right.
You attempted on
Friday.
Okay.
And then Saturday, and I had like a whole mental breakdown. I remember I was just crying and like calling my cousins and a whole mental breakdown. So Thursday, last beer. Friday, suicide attempt, mental health breakdown. Saturday, I went and got checked into a mental hospital.
Okay.
And that was a whole experience in itself, and that could be a whole discussion for another day. And then Monday, I got released. I released myself. It was either Monday or Tuesday I released myself from the mental hospital. And then Wednesday, I went to like my first connect group from my church. And like that whole week is like when God just drew everything like full circle and like turned my whole life 180.
Yeah.
So going back to your original question of like, well, why'd you get sober? It's like my mental health and like I had no plans on getting sober, honestly. Like, I just remember they gave me antidepressants and anxiety meds, and they're like, hey, you can't drink while you're taking this medication.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to be on this medication. I don't know for how long, but I'm not. And I remember like the next week I went out for like brunch for my cousin's birthday, and like they were having mimosas, and I love mimosas.
Yeah.
Even that last week I went with my friends. They're having mimosas, and I'm over here with my little coffee mug.
I know. That's one of the things I do miss. I found a really good non-alcoholic champagne that actually is like tart, like real champagne is. And I'll have that with mimosas here on Sundays. Yeah. I'll have to show you what it is. I love this. Champagne used to be my thing.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. And I found that really good non-alcoholic champagne.
I need to find non-alcoholic whiskey.
Well,
or just drink whiskey.
They do make some out there, but my husband is a big whiskey drinker, and so he says they taste awful. But I've never been a whiskey drinker, so I'll use them and make like mocktails.
Oh, okay, nice.
But yeah, so anyway. We keep getting derailed. We're like all over the place. Y'all are just gonna have to follow along.
But what was it? Oh yeah, so like I remember like doctor's like, okay, you can't drink while you're on this medication.
Yeah.
So next week I'm out with my friends. My cousins were at my cousin's birthday for brunch, and they're getting drinks, and I'm like, I'm okay. I don't want to drink.
Yeah.
And then I think like pandemic started happening, and everything's closed, so okay, I can't drink.
Yeah.
And then one of my earliest fun like memories from being sober, and like when I was first sober is I remember we were doing like a Zoom meeting with like my friends from church, my connect group. And I told them like, hey, I'm going to be 3 months sober. Can we pray about it? And just, pray for me to make it for 3 months sober. And then, okay. And then 3 months turned into 6 months. 6 months turned into a year. Even after I hit a year sober, I'm like, oh, or when I was going to hit a year sober, I was like, I'm going to think about whether I should drink or not. And honestly, I think it's through the grace of God that I'm still sober.
Yeah.
I've had, and I'm not gonna lie, I've had a non-alcoholic beer. Maybe like 6 months ago, I had one. No, probably like 9 months ago, I had one. And then one of my friends messaged me, "Hey, bro, don't mess with that. It's gonna derail you." And all right, he messaged me. All right, I'm good. No more.
And I think that's like, it's up to you. Like, I know, I drink them. I love them.
Oh, the non-alcoholic beers?
I have.
They're good.
My husband, I know. Well, and I like, because I liked the taste of IPAs. Like, I love IPAs. Nice. And I found a really good non-alcoholic IPA. Yeah. And I realized for me that I was drinking because it was just a habit. It was expected. Like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, time to pour a drink. Yeah. But I didn't even really want the vodka because I drank a lot of vodka and I drink a lot of wine. I didn't even really want the vodka. I was making like cool little waters with like rosemary and lime and some crushed up strawberry. And then I'd put the vodka in there because it was expected. It was like, that's what you're supposed to do. And then I wouldn't even finish it because I was tired of the vodka. Like I'd go pour myself another like water with all the stuff in it. Yeah. And so I realized like I didn't really want the alcohol anymore, but I liked the taste of like the fruity little water, and I liked the taste of the IPA, and I liked the taste of the champagne, but I didn't want the alcohol. So non-alcoholic drinks were great for me. Yeah. For some people, it is a slippery slope because they get the taste of the booze, but they're not getting the buzz, and they get frustrated. So they go grab the real thing. So it is. It's kind of personal choice, I think. Like
100%. And I know, like for myself, like you said, slippery slope. I think if I had continued drinking non-alcoholic beers, it would have been like, okay, well, 1 beer won't hurt. Yeah. Okay, 3 years. Oh. And like a lot of like my sobriety lines up with like me finding Christ, so it goes hand in hand. So I think it would have been super easy for me to be like, oh well, I found Christ already. I can have beer.
You can have a beer, to justify it. Yeah,
and I think you're 100% like everyone's walk is different. A lot of my music that I still listen to is about drinking. Like
I know your music type.
Or like beer never broke my heart and like stuff like that. And I'm like, that's true. Yeah. But I can listen to it, but I'm not gonna be triggered.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I need a beer.
And I know some people can't. Like they change their music, they change their movies, they change everything. And it is. It's 100% like it's your walk. Like, and I know some people, they bash like harm reduction where like you smoke weed instead of doing heroin.
I should start doing heroin after I start drinking. Right? I'm not doing heroin.
But there's that harm reduction viewpoint of like, okay, well, it's better than what you were doing. And for some people that works, and they go on and live very fruitful lives, and they have a hit of a joint every once in a while, but it keeps them off the heroin. Yeah. But so it is. It's like 100% your walk, and whatever makes you comfortable and is going to keep you sober is what you should be doing. So, what was I going to say next? I was going to say, you touched on machismo culture and your mental health because you aren't the first person to tell me that they got sober for their mental health. Because it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Like, did your drinking cause your mental health issues, or did your mental health issues cause your drinking? Like, it was like that for me. Like, was my grief driving my drinking, or was I already drinking too much and then grief hit and it just got worse? Which way does it go? And with my education and my background, like I know that a lot of what drives our behaviors is trauma from the past and unresolved issues of the past, unresolved grief, unresolved hurt, unresolved trauma. and it's kind of like it's just boiling under the surface.
Yeah.
And then we introduce something that completely numbs it. And it's like we had this little fire like just simmering inside of us, and you introduce booze, you introduce weed, drugs, whatever, gambling, eating, whatever. You introduce it, and suddenly that fire goes completely out. It's no longer simmering under the surface. And so it's like, okay, yeah, you started drinking to fit in and just because it was what you do in that stage in life, but then like you were numbing the tiredness, you were numbing the stress, you were numbing whatever. And then all of a sudden you had all these emotions that were there, and they like, because it doesn't stay put out forever. Like booze can only put it out for so long. And then it's like, wah!
Yes.
And it comes back with a vengeance. And so you were talking about machismo culture and how you kind of touched on it, how like you don't talk about your feelings. As a Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, whatever man, you don't talk about your emotions.
You don't.
It's almost frowned upon.
Yeah, that's super good. And, you know, you were talking about like, okay, so did your mental health cost your drinking, or did your drinking cost your mental health? And so I talk about my teenage years when I was like 12 to 18. It was really hard for me because I was in wrong place, wrong time. A lot of like, that's when my dad's drinking got really bad and whatnot. During those years, I was depressed. I was I was like super struggling with depression. I remember like just as a teenager, just thinking like, man, I don't want to wake up tomorrow because I don't want to deal with the crap of life. I remember like going to school was kind of like my safe place.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm here for 8 hours in the day. I'm not going to have to deal with my dad throwing a fit or like, you know, some other crap going on at home. Like, I'm safe here. So during those years of my teenage years is when I was like, I think I was like struggling with depression, and I still struggle with depression. Like, I'm going to own it. Like, I have depression, I have anxiety, but they don't have me.
Right.
I have control over it. And to this day, I still take a medication for both of them.
Yeah.
And no shame. I don't care. Anyone can think whatever they want to think. So we talk about like the machismo culture, and like I know my dad struggled with depression. I know my mom struggled with bipolarism. Yeah, I know my mom has bipolarism, and I think my dad has depression and probably a little bit of anxiety. And but growing up, we never talked about it. And it's kind of sad, like my mom, you know, struggling with bipolarism. Well, it wasn't that, like my other cousins, it wasn't, their mom is bipolar. It's their mom's crazy.
Yeah.
Or it's like my dad, whenever he would be a loose cannon, it wasn't, he's depressed. It's, he's going crazy type of thing. And that's really sad about the Latino culture, where it's like they don't talk about mental health. They don't talk about like, that's just, that's how they are. And that's
just it. Yeah.
And even like with like affection, like I can't tell you when was the last time I hugged one of my parents. I can't tell you when was the last time I even told one of my parents I love you, or they told me they loved me. Yeah. And it's nothing against them. It's, I know my dad loves me. I know my mom loves me. They have their ways of showing their love towards me. But it's just that culture where it's I'm very hugging and like I love people and stuff like that. And like I feel bad, but like even like with my sister, we're not like super affectionate, like where we hug and stuff like that, or tell each other we love each other. It's just like the way we're brought up, and it's just the reality of like that Latino culture of where it's like you don't talk about your feelings, or like you don't, you know, like I don't think me and my dad have ever had a one-on-one discussion about like how we felt or anything like that.
Yeah. And you have similar struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why aren't we talking about this?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, I'm sure you see him and you know he struggles with depression because you see it and you recognize it from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But how different would it be if we actually talked about this kind of crap?
Yeah, you would be able to probably like heal a lot of wounds, and stuff like that, and finally like find that middle ground and whatnot.
Yeah.
However, and this is me in my relationship with my dad. Like we got, like, it's like, we talk about machismo and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'd be like two bulls running head on.
Yeah.
Whatnot. It's like, no, we're trying to one up each other and stuff like that. And like, no, you did this, but I did that. And
yeah, it wouldn't be like reconciling.
No,
it would just be butting heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one trying to prove the other wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm right, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, and let me just say this right now. I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes. I don't know. I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm still a work in progress. I'm not Joe. I'm not Mr. Jesus, Mr. Shoreline City. I'm a human being. I'm still trying to figure out all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because I feel like our generation, I'm older than you, but our generation is the first generation to try to break those cycles and actually start talking about stuff. And it is so hard because my mom and I had a really difficult relationship growing up. And when I tell people our story, they're like, wow, you wouldn't be able to tell because y'all are close now. I'm like, yeah, it took a lot of work, but it wasn't work that we did together.
Individual.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me doing a lot of work on myself and trying to figure out, because it was kind of the same thing. Like now that we're even older, we can kind of have conversations. A lot of times, though, it's one-sided.
Yeah.
It's her,
versus you.
Yeah, like her getting it off her chest, her talking about it, and me just listening. Mm-hmm. But I'm at a point where I've forgiven her for a lot of things. I've moved on. It's okay. Yeah. So I let her kind of get it off her chest. Mm-hmm. But I think some of that is driven by the fact that she's getting older and she's being faced with her own mortality. And it's like she's realizing the things that she's done wrong over the years. Yeah. And she's willing to acknowledge them and apologize for them. But I'm 37. Like, it's been a long time, and it's like, but she also sees me doing this podcast and working with people and dealing with emotions. Mm-hmm. And so I think she sees that it's healing and it's liberating to do that. Mm-hmm. But I hope that we can break that cycle for our children and their children and the next generation so that we don't have another generation of Latinos struggling, hardcore struggling.
Yeah, that's super true. Yeah, I think it's so good. And like, I don't have children yet, through the grace of God. I couldn't afford them.
Kids are expensive.
I'm trying to go to concerts. Right? I ain't trying to buy no Similac.
Like, it's expensive.
Oh, it is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyway.
But my sister has 4 kids, so I have 4 nephews. And I need to give props to her because what she's doing as a mother is really powering. And the way she's able to have conversations with them and like, and like my sister jokes around about this, and she kind of raised me as a motherly figure. Mm-hmm. So it's that weird, awkward relationship. It's like, well, you're not my mom, but you kind of raised me as my mom. So it's like more, I don't know, flames, more fuel to the flame type of thing. But like my sister has really been able to break that generational curse where she's able to have conversations with my nephews where there are conversations where me and her couldn't have with our parents.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Props to her. And like, so I'll have conversations too my second oldest nephew. He's really smart. I've one time like my sister called me and she's like, "Hey, get on to your nephews 'cause I'm over here telling them this stuff and they're not listening." And so I'm like,
cracking the whip.
I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I'm like, "Hey, boy." But like I had a conversation, like I got onto them, like, "Hey, I better cut it up," because I'm like when I'm with them, I'm the fun uncle, cool, joking around and stuff like that. Like we just they don't even call me uncle or like Theo. They're just like, "Oh, hey, Joe," and like we're cool. Or like
they're your little homies.
Yeah, like and then I have another little cousin. His name is Noah. Same thing. We're just friends and stuff, and like we'll hang out. I'm like, man, I have more fun hanging out with y'all than out these people. But I had a conversation with my second oldest nephew, and I asked him, I was like, "Hey, remember that one time I got onto you and your brothers because y'all were acting up? Like, how did that make you feel?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well," I was like, "Did you feel like, oh man, Joe's mad at me, scared, or like, did you feel more like, oh dang, we let Joe down, like, disappointed?" And he's like, "Oh, it's like more like, oh man, we feel bad, like we let you down, type of thing, disappointment." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, good to know." And I'm like, that's a conversation I would never be able to have with my dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those conversations did not happen. Mm-hmm.
And if you were to like try to have that conversation, to be like, "Well, boy, if you weren't so stupid."
Yes. And I have 97 first cousins, so I have a bunch of cousins.
97?
Yes.
Who do you count them up? I don't even
For the obituary, when my grandpa died, they counted all the family so that they could list like he survived by his 10 kids and his 90s.
That's funny.
Yeah. There's a bunch of us. But I have one set of cousins, and they very much still have that old school mindset. And I see the way that they talk to their kids versus the way that I talk to my kids. Mm-hmm. And my kid. It's very different. And it is like, my child is super emotionally intelligent. Like, I can have super meaningful conversations with her. And when I do have to, like, discipline her, which is very, very rare, I can be logical with her and tell her, like, this is why you're in trouble. Like, this is why. And she'll be like, well, I think it's stupid.
That's funny.
But we can have that conversation. Whereas, like, my mom just screamed at me.
Yeah.
And go to your room. There was no explanation. There was no, like, I didn't understand why I was in trouble half the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, looking back now, I think it was because she was stressed about something.
Yeah.
And I just pushed her over the edge.
Yes.
But I didn't know that. So I thought I was bad. I thought I was wrong. I thought I was, like, there was something wrong with me.
Oh, wow.
And it really, like, it affected my own self-image and my self-esteem of like, oh, I'm just inherently bad.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's tough. I wish I could say I could relate, but I can't relate. Because, like I was telling you, like, when I was in high school, I was a good kid. I didn't do anything bad. It was just wrong place, wrong time. My dad, I think it was similar to, like, I remember my dad would hit me. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I got my ass whooped by my dad.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm not throwing shade at my sister, but I got my ass whooped, and it was my sister's fault.
Yeah, which happens.
Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? What did I do? Or I remember one time, too, like, my dad was drunk. We used to have a pool hall off of Saturn and Kingsley. Uh-huh. My dad and my uncle owned a pool hall.
So cool.
Right? And I would go and help them on the weekends from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And I'm only like 12 to 15 years old. So that's why I'm like, wrong place, wrong time. I saw a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine at a pool hall.
Yeah, uh-huh. I'm like, oh, why do they have sugar in these bags?
Oh, yeah. That ain't sugar.
But I remember, like, one time, like, my dad slapped me right in front of everyone at that pool hall real hard, across the cheek. And it's like, I think, like, it was never, like, I never, like, felt bad type of thing, like, when my dad would hit me. But a lot of it was like, okay, I need to be on my P's and Q's, and I need to read what kind of it's like you talked about emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I need to read what kind of mood my dad is.
Yeah.
If he's going to be in a shitty mood, I better be on my P's and Q's. If he's cool, sober, I was like, okay, I can just relax.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's very true about, like, and I think, like, you know, looking back now, well, you talked about your mom was stressed out, took it out on you. Well, my dad's mad at my sister. Gonna take it out on me.
Yeah.
My dad's over here drunk or something, and my dad would always try to fight customers at the pool hall. I remember one time, like, all my uncles gone, well, I was like, yeah, whoop that guy's ass.
Total machismo culture.
Yes.
Total Mexican man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all jump in.
Yeah. Well, that time that my dad probably slapped me, I think he was under the influence too, but he was probably pissed off about something else too. Yeah.
Totally different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I joke around, like, you know, you talk about how I'm like this ray of sunshine. I'm just like, you know, like, and like my friends tell me too, like I'm a social butterfly and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, all right. I posted a picture, like my dad, he has a face tattoo of Malverde on his face.
Oh.
All right,
what is
cool.
that?
It's like a saint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
And so it's like my dad, you know, face tattoo, super machismo culture.
Uh-huh.
And then me, I'm over here, rays of sunshine like SpongeBob.
throwing glitter.
Yeah.
I love your videos when you're like skipping around.
My TikToks.
Yes. Oh. So how is it now that you're sober?
Mm-hmm.
And is your dad still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does he still drink?
Yes, he does still drink. Unfortunately, we don't have a real good relationship, me and my dad. It's mostly like I'll see him at one of my nephew's birthday parties, but then, hey, how's it going? That's it.
Yeah.
But we don't really talk every day, and unfortunately, and like that's not just on him, that's also on me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, he's a bad dad or anything like that. Like I still have a lot of trauma and hurts that I still need to work through.
Yeah.
And like you were hitting on earlier about like the time people, like, you know, the time people are able to work on themselves individually, and then they're able to grow and become better and whatnot. And like a few years ago, I had a fallout with my sister, and we stopped talking for about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
But throughout that time, my sister we both individually started going to therapy, and we started, she was going to therapy, I was going to therapy at the time, and then like now we've been able to have a healthier relationship, but it's like during that time apart, we're able to focus on ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has to happen. Like I said, my mom didn't really heal from all of that, but I did. Mm-hmm. And I was able to love her. Mm-hmm. That was my prayer all the time, was, God, let me see her the way you see her. Yeah. And let me love her like you love her. Mm-hmm. And I think that helped her begin to heal on her own.
Wow.
And when I started trying to love her like God loves her, and it took a lot. Like every time she would start to make me mad, it was like, okay, I forgive her. I had to literally tell myself, I forgive her, and walk away and not interact in that dynamic.
Get in the moment.
Exactly.
Thing,
And it took a long time, but it did, like, that healing had to happen. And now we're great. And now we're, you know, she's always cheering me on and whatever. So I hope you get to that point with your dad.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it is within myself too.
Yeah.
Like
you have to be ready.
Yeah.
And it's on it's your time frame.
Yeah.
Because if you rush it, you're not, it's not going to be genuine. It's got to be when you're ready. Just like quitting drinking. Like, it has to be because you want to quit.
Yeah.
You can't quit for anybody else. It has to be because you want to quit.
Yeah, that's real good. And I think, like we've talked about machismo and Latin culture, it's like, I feel like a lot of Latinos kind of walk with a chip on their shoulder, kind of like having, you know, one eye, like, open type of thing. Like, okay, are you really my friend? Or you're just trying to get something out of me?
Always
like
suspect.
That. Yeah, always. And honestly, that's super true. And to this day, I'm still the same way. And like, even though like I'm very cool with people and friendly, I'm still kind of like on edge. Like,
it's still deep rooted in there.
It's still in me.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and it's really hard to break away from that. And I don't know that you should break away with all of it. I mean, it's because then you lose who you are,
yeah,
your core. But there's like got to be a healthy balance of like being careful and aware, but also like you are, like fun loving and just open to whoever, and welcoming different cultures, different types of people, different personalities into your life. Like there has to be a little bit of a balance. So what do you do for fun now that you're sober? I know this because I follow you on Instagram and you live a very fabulous life. But
I don't even know. Oh, okay, wait, you don't know. Okay.
Yes.
What do I do now that I'm sober? A lot of my sobriety is planted within my community. And so we could, like right now we're talking about sobriety, machismo culture, mental health. This could be a whole discussion for another day about like finding Jesus and whatnot. But a lot of my sobriety is rooted in like my community and my church.
Yeah.
Wonderful church.
Yes. Shout out to Shoreline
City. They need $18 million.
Yeah, right, exactly. Here in Dallas.
Y'all come in on me though.
That's how we met. It's an amazing church. But so.
Yeah, and I think like every Sunday I'm at church in the morning. And then I hang out with my friends who we serve the coffee. We hang out. And then Wednesdays I co-lead a group with you remember how I told you about like how I joined that first Connect group right after I got out of the mental hospital? Yep. So now I'm co-leading a group with them. Yeah, and it's so cool. It's full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so dope. Like Wednesdays we co-lead the group, and then I worked a lot, like 50 hours. 6 days, like this week I don't have a day off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so much.
I blame it on my dad.
Yes.
Honestly.
That machismo culture is still in there.
Yeah.
Still rooted.
And then I've found like a good group of core friends where I can hang out with like once a week, or we'll get brunch after church. Yeah. So a lot of like my sobriety is rooted within like my community and my friends. And like we can have deep level conversations like these, or we can like yesterday I was out with some friends from church. We were having a party. It was fun. They were drinking. I wasn't. I'm holy.
I am holy and sanctified.
They're sinners.
Unlike them, heathens.
Another thing though is like just allowing myself to just kind of like, I guess like love myself and like pour into myself. I love to dance. I love dancing. I haven't gone dancing. If you're single and trying to go dancing,
hit him up. He needs a dance partner.
And then I like going to concerts.
Yeah.
I like going to concerts by myself. And it's relaxing to me. And like people be like, "Oh, you can talk to people there." I'm like, "I don't want to talk to you."
I'm here for the music.
Yeah. I'm not here to make small talk or anything like that. But yeah, I think like now, like sobriety for me, it's very deeply rooted in my community, I would say. And even like my friends who like still drink, or like my friends who knew me before I got sober, like now it's a respecting. Like they don't try to peer pressure me. They're just like, cool, you're sober now. Like I went to my friend's wedding like last year with all my old buddies and whatnot, and it was real cool. They're drinking, but they're like, Joe, you don't drink. Yeah. It's cool. We're still my friend.
Yeah. And I love that. Like, it sucks when you get sober and your friends are like, oh, well, you could just have one. Yeah, One's not going to hurt you. And I'm like, it's because I can't just have one that I quit drinking. And my friends now, when I first got sober, that's kind of how they were.
Yeah.
Or they would say like, well, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
How long are you going to not be drinking for. But now, like when we go over to our friends' houses, they are almost like fierce advocates for me. You know?
Yeah.
Like, when new people come in and they're like, oh, you want a shot? They're like, she doesn't drink.
Yeah, it's super funny.
Yeah.
And I love that so much.
I do too. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And I think if more people would give sobriety a chance, like they would see that. Because I know a lot of people are timid about going sober because of their friends. They're like, my friends won't understand. I won't fit in anymore. I won't have the same friends anymore. They won't want to hang out with me. I think if you give people a chance and actually tell them like why you quit drinking, they really are receptive to it. And if they're your friends, if they're your true friends,
genuine friends, like they'll stick with you.
They're gonna support you.
100%. And I like how you hit on that. And I've heard it too from other people too. Like, oh, well, you know, man, my friends, they were like, why are you this way? Why are you trying to change and stuff like that? Well, like, screw them. If they're not your genuine friends, then okay, well, hey, that's cool. I like that we had a friendship that was based on partying and drinking and drugs. But that's not what I'm about anymore. And I'm going to try to go figure out what I want to do with my life. Yeah. And I had a fallout with friends who... they weren't on board with, like, me staying sober. I remember one time I went out with my friends, and they're like, I was like, hey, I got church the next morning. Church can wait, man. Just have another beer, man. Church. Oh, that can wait. And now I'm no longer friends with them. Yeah.
Yep. It like naturally weeds out the people
good,
who need to
build like friendships.
Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Like people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And those lifetime friends, they really will like stick it out with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super true. The reason, season, and lifetime.
Yeah.
Friends. I like that.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend, and when she went sober, she was struggling with that. And, like, her friends didn't want to hang out with her anymore. And I told her, I said, reason, a season, or a lifetime. Like, they were there for a season, and maybe they don't make it to the next season. Yeah. And that's okay. And it's okay to be sad. And it's okay to grieve that friendship. Like, but just know that not everybody's going to walk through every season with you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like, and that's totally okay. Like, friendships come in seasons. Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. And I'm, like, this whole season of friends. I hope y'all are my lifetime friends. But I've been really grateful because I was in Dallas. I got here in 2017. And it wasn't until I met you and Tracy and, like, the whole group that we hang out with. Like, all of y'all. I met Tracy at the beginning of 2022. And, like, that was the first...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought y'all had been friends for a longer time.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah. They were cool.
Like, we're super close. Like, we bonded immediately. And we've been, like, super close since then. Yeah. But, yeah, I didn't meet them until the beginning of 2022. Oh. And that was my first group of my friends. Like, where they were my people. Yeah. Because I have friends here, my husband's friends, you know, and I'm great friends, like, the wives and the guys and, like... But my friends who go to church and who have the same beliefs as me and who are kind of walking through the same things as me. And it's like, that was the first time I had that. And I cannot stress how important it is to have a good community of people who support you in everything, but especially if you're going sober.
Yes, for sure. I agree 100%. Like, and just... yeah, you hit that really well. I'm very close with, like, my friends who we, like, serve in the hospitality area, the coffee area at church. And, like, man, I really love them so much. And, like, they've seen me, like, they've seen me have anxiety attacks. They've seen me cry. They've seen, like, when I'm at my lows. And it's just so nice to have, like, that group of friends where, like, no, it's okay. Like, we're going to be here for you. Yeah. Or, like, even, like, I love what you've kind of created with, like, this group of friends. Like, I don't even know how to, due to me being a social butterfly, I have, like, multiple groups of friends. Yeah, yeah. I joke around with my friends. I'm like, yeah, I guess you get around town.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I see you on everyone's story. Like, you're on, I'm like clicking through Instagram. I'm like, there's Joe.
And but I love what you've created with like this group of friends. Like that Friendsgiving was a lot of fun that you hosted a while back, and like was Tracy too. Tracy, I think I met her at the start of 2022, and then we became closer friends like towards like fall of 2022, and then she's just like, "Oh, Joe, you come with me to this event. Joe, you're coming with me to this event."
She just brings you along to everything.
Like, okay.
That's just how she is.
Yeah.
She's the glue that holds us all together.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. It's just a real genuine soul.
Yeah. She is. I love Tracy.
But yeah, I love that what you've created was like this group of like friends, and like I know like it was like you, Tracy, me, like America too, and yeah, I think that's great what you've created, and I think that's key to what you said about like this is your group of friends now.
Yeah,
like, I think it's very like, how do I word it? Like it's hard when you're making it that transition of like, okay, well, I'm gonna live a new lifestyle, and then you're gonna need friends like to support you in that new lifestyle, and it's like people can say like, oh yeah, you have a lot of friends, but like, are they really friends or are they acquaintances? Yeah. And I think that's cool that you have this like foundation of like, friends.
It's like when the crap hits the fan, who are you going to call? Like when, earlier this year, I was on that message group with y'all when my mom was going through her medical stuff of like, and you guys were there. Like every day, every time I went into the group chat and was like, I need y'all to pray for me. It was, and I could feel it holding me up. Like I could feel it. And it's so important. I coach people in sobriety, and that's always the first thing I tell them is like, what is your friend circle? Like, what is your community? What is your support system? Because if you don't have people, it's going to be really hard to stay sober.
Wow.
Yeah. You have to have people that are going to call you out on it when you're drinking or when you're tempted or when you're hanging out somewhere, especially in early sobriety. It's not, you can't really like go hang out at the club, you know, because it's going to be way too tempting to just order a vodka soda. And so it's like, you've got to have those people that are going to hold you accountable and keep you in line. And so, and I tell them like, some of my clients, they're like, oh, well, I'm like, who can you call when you want to drink? And they're like, nobody. And I'm like, you have to like, get out, go to church, go to a Facebook meetup group, go to AA. You've got to do something because you've got to get some friends.
That's super true. Yeah. And I like how you talk about like those friends who are going to hold you accountable. And I remember like sometimes I'll joke around and like grab a bottle and be like, and they're like, put that down and stuff like that. Yeah. Or one time like I was joking around with my friends and I was like, and they're like, if you start drinking again, I don't want to be the first person that you have a beer with. Like, I'm not going to be the one. Yeah. Or it's cool you talk about early stages of sobriety and like now I'm 3 years sober. Excuse me. Like early sobriety was easy for me. Everything was closed, so yeah. Because it was during pandemic, so like I had no options. Yeah. But like a few weeks ago, I went out with my friends and like they ordered around, and then so like they're doing like the they have the lights and the signs and like hey and then like my friend ordered me a Topo Chico, so it's like right there, and I'm like hey. I saw that. You're like my fancy Topo Chico. Yeah, it is different. There's different stages of sobriety, and it's like when you're very new. Sitting at the club with the bottle service probably isn't a good idea. But now, like, I'm in the same state. Like, I didn't really have a choice, though, because all of my friends drink. They all drink. And it's not like, it's like Sunday, we go to brunch, and then we go to someone's pool, and it's all day drinking. Yeah. And so it was a little bit different for me. And it was the same way when I got sober from meth. I lived in the trailer park where they made and sold meth. Wow. So I couldn't get away from it. Yeah. And so it was a little bit different for me. And I always tell people, I'm like, you can't go based on me. Like, I'm the anomaly. Like, I'm very different. Yeah. And for whatever reason, like, when I say no, like, it's no. And I'm pretty much done. Like,
when I finally put my mind to it. But there's stages of like, okay, now I can go into these different situations.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can be around people when they're drinking. Now I know I can say no, because I know without a shadow of a doubt that I don't want to go back to where I was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you know what it was like when you were drinking, and you know what it's like now, and now is way better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, yeah, like, yeah, if you like look at like, okay, how's your life now compared to when you were drinking? Well, it's like, it's so weird. It's like, once you have that, like, sober mindset, like, you see life way differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's almost as if, like, I don't know, it's like you get smarter or something, or like you hit on emotional intelligence, like, just the way you process things, and you think about life, and you think about friendships, and just everything. It's a 180, like, from when you're drinking to when you're sober. It's like it's kind of like you're a new person.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
You are all brand new. Like, yeah, the problems don't go away, but you have this new mindset, this new outlook.
Yeah, of how to handle situations. Yeah. Like, I was talking to, like, so, like, you talked about, like, okay, well, I would numb my emotions with drinking. And so, like, one of my friends, she asked me, like, oh, well, what do you do now for your emotions? I'm like, I just allow myself to feel them.
Yes.
Yeah, and, like, earlier this week, I was going through so much, like, anxiety, and, like, I don't know, just, I think it was, like, after I went to the Luke Combs concert.
Oh, yeah, you were all in your feelings.
Yeah, and I was, like, by myself, and, like, everyone, there's couples all around me, I'm, like, crying inside.
It was triggering.
Yeah, so, like, earlier this week, I was just, like, dealing with, like, loneliness and, like anxiety, too. I was just, like, man, my mind's all racing. And so, like, Tuesday, when I got off work, I just went home. I think I, like, ate, took a nap, and I was just in my bed, sad.
Wow.
And then, all right, next day, I'm like, oh, well, it can't be sad all the time.
Yeah, but you gotta let it out. Like, you just gotta let yourself feel it.
Yeah, and giving yourself that grace to feel your emotions. Like, hey, I'm sad right now. Sad. I'm gonna feel it.
Yeah.
Or
take a few days and be sad.
Or towards maybe a few months ago, I was dealing with a lot of anger. And I'm an Enneagram 9, so I don't like anger. I don't like feeling it, but it gets kind of bottled up in there. So, like, I went and, like, but I got myself a hotel room in Oklahoma City. And, like, I went to one of those smash rooms where you're, like, 20 minutes and you're just destroying things. Yeah. And, like,
I tell people all the time about smash rooms. I'm like, do it.
They're so healthy.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm like,
let it out.
And then, like, they let me play music, so I'm, like, playing all this music about screw everyone and stuff like that.
Like, ah!
Yeah, and it was, like, super, like, but, like, okay, I'm angry. Well, I'm gonna feel my anger, and I'm gonna let it out in that
in a healthy way.
In a healthy way.
Yeah, we have a punching bag back there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
I was thinking about getting one.
Yeah, when my stepson died, my daughter had a lot of anger, and we got her a punching bag because we were like, you got to get it out. You can't keep it in. It's got to come out.
Yeah.
And screaming at people isn't the answer.
It's not. It's really not. Yeah. Or, like, going on walks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like, my job is I'm on my feet doing a lot of cardio. So I can't, like, I'm too sore to go on walks.
Oh, yeah. So you got to find something else. But you find what works.
Yeah.
And just let yourself feel the emotions. Don't bottle them up. Don't hold them in. Yeah. So, one last question. What would you say to someone just like you, a younger version of you who is struggling with drinking or struggling with their emotions as a young Hispanic man?
Young Hispanic man dealing with their emotions and drinking. One of my friends earlier this week, she was like, hey, my friend's boyfriend is struggling with alcoholism, and, like, do you have any advice, things like what could he do and stuff like that? And if I were to, and I'm gonna tell her, so I'm, like, picturing young Hispanic male struggling with machismo, struggling with, like, Latin culture, struggling with, like, drinking and stuff like that, if I were to see that guy and if I'm seeing this other younger version of myself, I would say if you really want help, you gotta want it. You gotta be willing to change. Like, you can't, like, it has to be from within yourself. That's the bottom line. Like, if you don't want to change how you are, or like if you're like, oh, yeah, I'm tired of drinking, but then the next week you're still gonna go out and have some beers, then all right, well, that's on you, because what your actions are showing me, it's not lining up to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and like I remember one time we were talking about like my dad and his alcoholism, and I remember one of my uncles saying like, well, we can't do anything unless he wants to change for himself.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think that's it. Like, if you really want to change, it's going to be within yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be like, and you got to want to change for yourself. Like, it can't be like, oh, my girlfriend wants me to change. I'm going to try to get better. Like, no, because then it's not going to be genuine and whatnot for your own good and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like, a little bit of, like, my machismo culture is hitting me, where I'm like, boy, get up and, like, I think, like, Pastor O even talks about it in the Bible, where it's like Jesus said, all right, pick up your mat.
Yeah.
I'm like,
get up.
Yeah, get up. Like, hey, all right, you're tired of being in this crappy situation of dealing with alcoholism and your emotions and stuff like that. Well, all right, get up and, like, let's start making small steps to get better.
Yep. Yep.
I think that's what I would say.
Pick up your mat and get up.
Like, all right, come on.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for thank you for having me as a guest.
Yes.
And this has actually been an answer to a prayer.
Really?
Yes. So I joined a group, a Connect group on Saturdays. We meet and we talk about our testimonies.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah. It's real good. Love it. Love the host. She's amazing.
Yeah.
I think, like, with me, it was like, man, like, they're gonna know all my dirt. Oh, now we know why he that way.
Yeah, now we understand.
Yeah. And so, like, this was a huge answer to a prayer for me.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've been wanting to share my testimony. Because, like, I've shared it with, like, a handful of close friends.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, your story is very powerful. Like, people need to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are still struggling. And it's like, one of my friends, she messaged me and she was like, man, you have every right to be angry at, like, the world and stuff like that, but you choose not to.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, sometimes I can be very bitter and whatnot, but, like, I'll, like, brush it off and be like, all right, I'm not going to be a little punk.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a daily choice.
And I like that, like, this wasn't a whole discussion about, like, Jesus and finding Christ and all that, but it's part of my testimony of who I am. It's my story of, like, sharing, like, oh, who is the real Joe? It's super easy. Like, you see me at a party, I'm over here high-fiving everyone and, like, dancing with people and stuff like that. But there's so much more to, like, me and, like, thank you for this opportunity where I'm able to share my story. I'm able to share about sobriety, mental health, Latino culture. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Okay.
I'm gonna cry.
All right. All right, friends. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Bella Grace podcast with Joe. He is one of my nearest and dearest friends, and I am so thankful that he was here. As always, I hope you have a great week, and I will be back next week with another amazing interview with another friend of mine, and I'm so excited to bring that to you. If you are interested in breaking through a boring life in sobriety, if you're ready to start making a plan to make life fun and really enjoy being sober instead of just constantly trying to make it to the next day, reach out to me. I have a course that is going on right now. It is a sober summer prep sesh. And during that course, we will break through the mindsets that are keeping you stuck in a boring, sober life and help you create a plan for a fun, sober summer. And so if you are interested in that, you can reach out to me. My contact details are always in the show notes. And I would love to hear from you. Always hit like, subscribe, share. I would be forever grateful for all of that. And please be well, be kind, and may you find some joy this week. Bye.